Welcome to the Butterfly Tribe, where independent minds gather and sovereign voices are heard. This is a space where truth is not silenced, perspectives are valued, and every voice matters. Free from judgment, free from stigma, united through awareness. Welcome home, Butterfly. We've been expecting you. Sanhedrin 54b. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. Tospot Yebamot 84b. If you eat with a goy, is the same as eating with a dog.
With the realization of this immortal soul comes also the transcendence of the fear of death and therefore the embrace of life.
Master yourself, govern yourself. That's the slogan of the Butterfly Tribe. And so when we talk about these topics, especially when we talk about Judaism, well, I talk a lot about it, it may sound contradictory, especially for if you are Jewish, but also for people who are still in the program of feeling guilty for what happened during the First and Second World War. But why don't we talk about all the Christians and all the Islamic people who were genocided?
Everything happens for a reason.
Oh yes.
So there is a different perception than someone who believes in randomness, which is the God of many people, which is a scary God because anything can just happen for no reason.
Welcome, butterflies, to a new broadcast, Tribe Radio, of the Butterfly Tribe. I'm here with Ruben, a good friend, and more than a friend, a brother of mine, whom I have invited to join me on this journey. I've been walking this path of sovereignty for, I think, 10 years now, making content for 7. We have grown towards 250,000 followers, and we are steadily growing all around the world. I did an interview yesterday with the Dutch media, and we spoke about the Jews, our true history, and the tentacles that have taken over all the Western societies and also other societies. This is why I preach sovereignty. I want to bring awareness to who is truly in power in this world, to make sure that people remember how they can take their power back, their sovereignty. Right now I'm in Kuala Lumpur, joined with my brother Ruben, and I wanted to have conversations together and to have more of a space in which we can share. And Ruben is the perfect individual to have a meaningful conversation with. So enough about me. Ruben, welcome. Maybe you would like to introduce yourself to our tribe.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction yourself, Robin. And yeah, I've known Robin for quite a while, and I've noticed over the years that we share the same values. And those values, the main value I would say is to value the truth, to love the truth above all else. So never to hold on to any prejudice and always to be open to reason and to discover what those truths are. So that makes a space of true connection, as I like to say, the realm of reason, a thing that we have in common. And in the Butterfly Tribe I recognize that space, and therefore I'm here with a lot of enthusiasm to join this movement. And me myself, I would say I did a lot of things in life, but the main red line throughout my life is this search for truth. And I would say I have found. And now comes the phase of sharing and embodying this truth more through sharing, and thereby restoring the circle, the round table, as I like to call it, which I see as a central aspect of our civilization, a place where we reflect instead of projecting on each other. And this we do because we know the one at the core. Therefore, our honor is honesty, and to take responsibility, to develop response ability instead of reaction, and reconnect to that highest truth that we are in essence all one, and that there is a path of logic and reason that leads us back to this spiritual self-realization of the immortal soul and God within, as well as the invisible connection and the law of cause and effect that guides us through synchronicities and through the events that happen in our own lives, but also in the bigger field, which of course you speak a lot about. So that's why I'm here, to just help catalyze that process and learn from it myself and embody myself more and share this beautiful path.
Beautiful. And grow together as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this introduction, brother. I see only one little issue here. Your camera was in freeze while you were talking. I don't know if you can see yourself, if you are moving on your camera.
Yeah, I'm moving. Yeah.
You're moving on your camera? Okay. So then maybe it's nothing, and we will see after the recording. But yeah, beautiful, Ruben. Thank you. You know, you wrote a beautiful text that I would like to invite you to share with our audience, because it really reflects exactly what we try to create with the Butterfly Tribe, and also the podcast that we are now going to broadcast 1 time a week to begin with, because we both have very busy lives. You have a family to take care of. I have a platform to build, content to make, connections to make. I have to travel, etc. So the stage is yours a second time, so you can share that with us.
I'll grab the text. It's a bit messy, so forgive me if I stumble over a word. But I'll share this little introduction, and it's going to be part of a bigger manifest that I want to share with the people who desire to reflect upon the truth they are, or anything really, and enter that circle that I was speaking about, that realm of reason. In a world full of lies, where the love of money and status often overrules the love for truth, where fear drives people to overshout the voice of reason, and artificial intelligence and biased algorithms threaten to overshadow all platforms with the clutter of greed and power-driven lies and half-truths. Where do we find truth? We will need to go back to what we do know and let go of all assumptions. We will need to start to map our reality based on what we know and experience directly ourselves, based on honest reflection and not projection of what we think we know and believe in, based on stories of others, no matter who those others are. We need to realize the space to be, the space in which we truly meet each other, a space in which we have full attention for what the other person is really intending to say. A realm of reason, where emotion is not ridiculed, nor is it accepted as a foundation to make a point. It simply is allowed to be felt, but not used to justify closing down to reason. In this realm of reason, no disrespect is ever intended to any living being. All life forms are acknowledged as part of our one collective being, the Earth body and our world community. We are learning to be in the world as the world, and not of the world. No topic is taboo, for any censorship of reason will result in ignorance, and ignorance is the root of all evil.
Beautiful.
And the word evil, in spelling in English, is live in reverse. So it's the opposite of living, not to live, not to share yourself.
Yeah. Just like love, actually, but then it only sounds like evil. It's not written like that. Yeah. Well, this really reflects exactly what we want to. How do you say that? This really reflects exactly what we want to get
bring to the world. Yeah.
Yeah, bring to the world the plants, the seeds we want to plant. Because truth, it is relative, you know. For us, truth can be what our reality is, and truth can be something else for someone else who, for example, wants to take over the world, like the elites. They believe in what they do. They think it is okay to genocide an entire Earth population just because they believe they are the chosen ones. And it can be very hard, and you need to be a very disciplined individual to look at this from an aspect, from a neutral aspect. You know, exactly what you just said. Maybe you want to continue this thought.
Yeah, the way I look at that is that humanity is still growing up. We're still in a process of development where we're in that stage where we learn about good and evil. The chrysalis, as you called it.
The cocoon.
There's the caterpillar, which is the old fear-based system, which roots in duality. It roots in a disconnection from the oneness at the center. So the self and God are separated, and God becomes an entity in the sky, an overruling, separate entity that punishes and rewards according to a certain morality, instead of realizing that God, the creator, is within the creation, and it's not God's laws that are true because they are His, but rather they are His because they are true, which changes us from a perspective of order followers, a slave morality, to a creational power, a mode in which we carry responsibility, in which we are part of God, not separate. And that realization requires the responsibility, and that happens through pain also. Just like a child. Like my little son the other week burned his hand on the wood burner. You know, this is a hard lesson. Yeah, but this is what fire does. It is part of our material reality that we can hurt ourselves in this physical form. And the fear of that pain and of physical death before we realize that immortal soul overrules our authenticity, our soul mission, our yeah, state of being.
Yeah, and
And of course,
collectively, we're going through a very painful chapter of humanity. We've already had painful chapters, but right now, a lot of people around the world are experiencing this pain. And as a message to these people, our people, because we're all human beings with a heart and a soul, this path of suffering will bring you to a higher state of consciousness. And this is a beautiful gift, actually. And if you see it that way, then life doesn't become so hard anymore. Only when you take yourself too seriously is when things become very difficult in life.
it becomes
my
a dream. It becomes a dream. That's how I see it. There's this pressure, this chrysalis happens because there's an enormous pressure from outside in which wars and disease and mass immigration and all these things happen. And we don't agree with them. We don't feel safe in that world. But we also don't have the power to change it as individuals. So we are forced to go to that inner space where we realize that oneness, where we realize the true God within, being, or Christ as some call it, like Jesus called it Christ, of course, and realized that aspect of himself according to that version of the story. And that's true, that happens like that we awaken like that. And then the next step is that we lose the fear, because with the realization of this immortal soul comes also the transcendence of the fear of death, and therefore the embrace of life. To live and let live requires us to take our space, fulfill our needs, because that's living. And that's not just as an individual, but also as a tribe, because we will respect the differences that are natural as well. Ethnicities, races, sexes, all these things are not something that we made up. That's part of the creation, like different colors of the rainbow, like different ecosystems. And that's also part of what is now starting to take its space.
Yes, I agree. But to a certain degree, there's also a lot of manipulation going on in cultures right now. Like, for example, what is happening right now in Iran. These people, they haven't asked for this. They haven't asked for a war. And they are being framed, this is my perspective, they are being framed as terrorists while they are not. The terrorists are framing the terrorists, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I completely agree, and I'm bringing this up more to have a discussion about it, not to contradict you, because I completely agree with your viewpoint. But there is something toxic in the world that is making this holy collective differences of cultures around the world something very difficult to live. Right?
Yeah. And there's absolutely a collective. The way I perceive that is a collective ignorance that manifests in order followers, and these order followers are given different programs, the dogmatic belief systems that are now played out against each other. Anyone who identifies with the form over the actual content, in the sense of like the content perceived from unity consciousness, from a real honest perspective of our true soul, true self, anyone who is identified with that polarity will be neutralized against each other. They will be played out. There's a polarization happening, and right now almost the whole internet is used for that. We
Yeah.
are one of the only sounds that speaks like this. There is a lot of. This is why I joined this podcast and no other podcast, because there's not many that are really honest, that are at least visible on the screen. Also because I believe the algorithms don't allow much that isn't polarizing. And there's a lot of AI videos that are completely fake.
Yeah, good
And
point.
it's
Yeah.
very hard to know what's actually going on. In Iran, for example, it's very hard to know. I myself have very positive experiences with people from Iran. In my experience, from all the people from the Middle East that I personally encountered and had ceremonial experiences with in different settings or conversations, philosophical conversations, spiritual conversations, they are very high up there in my perception.
They're highly educated
Yeah,
and they have a feeling of honor. Um,
that's what I experienced. Yeah, open
yeah,
conversation, honest, intelligent. I've never experienced any issues personally with people from Iran. So it's a very strange concept to, especially since there's a lot of other, if we want to generalize and collectivize people, there's a lot of other groups that are creating a lot more problems in our lives here in the West through all sorts of means, that would deserve some attention before Iran. So it's a very, well, certainly very manipulative narrative that is being pushed.
yeah, and that's why we don't want to add to the noise by having these conversations, and that's why we create this space to have an accountable conversation about it. So if people who are watching this have opinions, please do write them underneath this video, and let's have a discussion. The trick is, do not react from the emotional state of being, but try to step back and watch the world and this conversation and everything that is happening in the world more as a sort of play that we're in. Something we have been invited to experience. Because we have some rules within our tribe, right, Ruben?
Yeah, well, there's the rules of engagement, as I like to call it. And I would say, like, for anyone who read the Toltec Wisdom, what's the name of the book? I think it's called the Fifth, or the Five Agreements, or the Four Agreements, or something like that. But there's a fifth one. And those are like, don't take anything personal. That's a really good one.
Very important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be impeccable with your words. And of course, if you say something that you don't mean or that isn't accurate, sometimes you don't find the words, sometimes there is reactive behavior, then own it, be honest, open up. And don't base yourself on assumptions. So admit that we don't know everything, you don't have to know. You can admit, like, I don't know, and still follow the path of reason, so together we can find out. And sometimes the conclusion might be so far out of what you perceive to be possible before that you would have dismissed it if you would have
That's much more
closed down
honorable.
to reason. Yeah.
That's much more honorable because if you pretend to know everything, then you stop learning as well, And we have a lot of that kind of people in the world, especially people who pretend to be highly educated. They are highly indoctrinated, actually, because they think by the rules, they act by the rules, and they don't. So they live in a box. And what we want here is to have an open perspective, an open world. The butterfly flies. It doesn't sit in a box, right? We came out of the chrysalis, where we did our introspection, where we felt all the hurt and the pain of the world, but now we're out of it. And so we continue to grow, we continue to fly. A caterpillar...
We're learning to fly, I would say. We're starting to learn to fly, yeah.
A caterpillar consumes what it is given. A butterfly flies wherever it wants. And it lands also wherever it wants. So a little metaphor.
There's definitely a freedom to the butterfly that the caterpillar can't even perceive. And I see that as the perception of the invisible connection, that there is an actual guidance. Everything happens for a reason.
Oh, yes.
So there is a different perception than someone who believes in randomness, which is the god of many people, which is a scary god because anything can just happen for no reason. So there's a constant fear, there's a constant separation from the path of your life and the events in your life, which creates a certain urge to control, which makes us more tense. And it's exactly that kind of tension that narrows our channel, and therefore we can't stream the actual divine being that we are. You know, we can't stream that life and that overview that we actually are. And in order to relax that, it can't be a forced thing. It's not like you tell someone like, oh yeah, just take a few breaths and then you're there. You don't know. There is a journey. We have to draw the sword of truth and the shield of virtue, and we have to start going into that shadow of those thorn bushes. We have to start cutting away those assumptions, taming the dragon of reaction, the fire that the destructive fire of projection that we throw at others, labeling them, dehumanizing them, racist, extreme left, or whatever, you know, any kind of label. Like, people believe things, but it's not who they are. So the label is never true. So to get beyond that and awaken that sleeping beauty at the core, which is in Christianity also the Eve that fell. The feminine energy is the receptive energy that makes us receive what is, makes us see what is, without projecting our belief system on it. And therefore the word belief, and I looked this up, what like the old Aramaic had to say about this, because I noticed that many people use the word belief as a substitute to assume. They assume something, they believe something, but they can't reason why. And that's not real belief. Belief is faith. And faith is in a law of cause and effect, is in this reaping and sowing, or sowing and reaping into this world. Like, don't treat others the way you don't want to be treated. You know, do good upon this world and good will come to you. This is an essential, right? This is a very essential to any religion, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Islam means surrender to the one. The word Islam.
I didn't know
right?
that.
So it's like, it's often translated as submission, but that's actually not a correct translation as I understood it. I don't speak Arabic, to be clear.
Inshallah, that's what I know.
Yeah, well, if Allah wants that, if it's God's will. But again, this is like a surrender to the one. When you say Inshallah, it's a surrender to the one. But to then force others to adopt your form of expressing your faith is a direct contradiction to that surrender to the one. Because above all, the creation, the living truth of nature, earth, our beings, like different kinds of races and the whole thing, is the language of the Creator. And the Creator lives in that creation. Mm-hmm. So there is this unfolding, and Islam also recognizes Jesus Christ as a prophet. And the discussion is that the Christians say he's the Son of God, and the Muslims say he's a prophet. I can see how both in a way are true, but I tend to find more clarity in the way Islam
Yeah.
describes Christ in that sense, because a prophet is someone that is channeling God, the truth, speaking that truth. And even Muhammad, although I do not agree with his deeds in these times, I can see how that path was needed to tell us this story of good and evil, and therefore I can even recognize him as a prophet.
And this is how they create duality as well with these kind of topics. Like, was Jesus the Son of God or was he a prophet? Maybe he was both. Maybe he was neither. What does it matter? What matters is what he said, what he taught.
Yeah.
And, for me, and I don't want to be judgmental by saying this, this is a form of ignorance, like fucking quibbling about whose God is better. It doesn't matter. It's what happens when we look in one another's eyes, and we become aware of the fact that I am you and you are me. That's the basis of everything, I believe. And the kingdom of God lives within. That's what Jesus said. And this is true. We are God, but only when we live from these principles that we just spoke about: truth, honor, and humbleness. Also very highly underestimated by a lot of people. But humbleness, I think, is very important as well. Yeah. And where do you believe, Ruben, is this path of suffering going towards collectively right now?
Well, that humbleness that you speak about, I believe it takes an incredible, an absolute realization of humbleness on the individual level to embrace our true being. It's an enormous power that comes from this place of complete universal truth. And we do our best. I mean, we use words now like Christ and Islam and whatever. They're all words in the end, right? So depending on where someone is from and what language they speak, they will express differently. But each in their own way has to strive for a universal way of expressing that is about universal needs, and therefore a universal morality that provides for those needs. And to me, that comes down to the sense of honor, which roots in the sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging consists out of, first of all, the oneness at the center. That's the crown chakra as well, the opening. And the root chakra is tribe, right? So we also acknowledge the tribe we belong to. Like I'm white, I'm Dutch, I'm a man, right? Our tribe might become a new tribe now based on the spiritual consciousness, because there is a separation in this apocalyptic times, this end times, and it's not the end. It's not the end, It's a stage, and every end is a new beginning.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a continuation, but there is an end of a certain kind of old paradigm in which these people confuse the words for reality, right? They are dogmatic. I mean, anyone that does not understand that Allah and God and Yahweh are exactly the same, that there is indeed only one, is actually in denial of the one, right? Like,
Yeah. Because they don't think for themselves. They don't use their sovereign given intuition. No,
they are possessed by an ideology. They are possessed by ideas, and they identify with what they think. So they believe that they are what they think they are, and that the other is what they think the other is. But this is spellbound. They are spellbound. and there's these priests that are casting the spell, but the priests themselves are also spellbound. So it's a program. It's not a conscious thing. It's
That's
like
why we
what I
call
always
it
say is
synagogue of Satan.
sorry.
That's why we call it synagogue of Satan.
Yeah, well, they are the master spellcasters, I think, in this world. I don't think anyone that their research would deny that there is a certain group of people that call themselves Jewish. But I don't know if they are, because the way I see it is, again, the word Jew, the word Muslim, the word Christian, for me points to people who are conscious of the one and who are embodying that. So no matter what these holy books say about those things, that is the essence of it. So I am a Jew, I am a Muslim, I am a Christian,
Oh yes.
because I realize this knowledge that is transferred through these holy books. Yet, those who want to build power structures, build pyramid structures in this world, top-down power structures, will use that power structure to become the medium between the truth and the people.
Yeah.
And therefore they point upwards behind them, like, oh, I'm representing that God or that truth or that holy book, and I'm translating it, I studied it, but it doesn't mean they understand it. Everyone needs to study it for themselves. And first of all, realize that their own lives are the real study, and that these books are guiding us. They're helping to reflect and to have a common language to speak about these things. So they have immense value, but they can never overrule the real experiences of life, the real creation, the real living God.
Yeah.
And
And this is why communication from community is so important. And let this be clear for our audience as well. We want to be a tribe of all cultures, of all religions, of all the people who understand that they themselves have the power to master their own lives and their own path, our own destiny. We shape our own destiny collectively. Master yourself, govern yourself. That's the slogan of the Butterfly Tribe. And so when we talk about these topics, especially when we talk about Judaism, well, I talk a lot about it. It may sound contradictory, especially for if you are Jewish, but also for people who are still in the program of feeling guilty for what happened during the First and Second World War. Oh, these poor Jewish people. But why don't we talk about all the Christians and all the Islamic people who were genocided far more in numbers than the Jewish people? I think more and more people are starting to see this contradiction in the narrative, and who really owns the stage. Especially in Europe and the USA, it's undeniable that Israel and the Mossad is controlling every step, every decision that is made from the governments. Don't you believe that?
yeah, I wouldn't limit it to the Mossad. I would say there is a deep state that uses different programs and different organizations.
Yeah.
So basically, bringing
Yeah.
it back to hard power, right? Like the banks and the money, the production of money, value out of nothing.
Yes,
And there,
created by Amschel Meyer Rothschild, who is a Jew.
yes, there is this definitely from this group of people a massive influence into that deep state. But what I'm trying to get to is that there is a role that they are fulfilling by putting this pressure on everyone and by tempting everyone to give away their power to this system that they built, this control system, which roots in money, media, and military, right? The three M's. That's kind of a known concept in the conspiracy world. Yet I think that these same people are also controlling the big religions at the top. So I don't believe necessarily the struggle or the battle between Judaism and Islam, for example, or Judaism and the Catholic Church. To me, it seems pretty obvious that Israel was created for a specific reason, to be a kind of inflammation in the Middle East, to trigger a war, to do all these cruelties, but they're reporting on it. Why is there so much reporting, both online as in mainstream media? Why is there so much reporting of this, cruelties against the Palestinians and all these things? And why is the war in Ukraine so underreported, for example? Mm-hmm. Because the war in Ukraine is a much bigger genocide, much more advanced genocide than the war on the Palestinians is.
A genocide of white people. And
a genocide of white Christian rooted people. They have a strong culture that precedes Christianity even.
Yeah, and that completely completes what I just mentioned, where why don't we give attention to the Caucasian cultures who were genocided in our history? And the same is happening right now. I'm not saying that it is not horrible what is happening in Palestine. It's the same for me. I mean, they are human beings. These people who hold the strings should be hanged on these strings from their necks. But it is interesting if you look at it from a pattern side of view. Why do we give more attention to what is happening, like you said, in Israel, and not what is happening in Ukraine? I think it has to do with the child trafficking networks that are very established there in Ukraine. More and more is coming out around that as well, but it's not. It is suppressed by the algorithms for sure. Yeah. What is your perspective on that, brother?
Well, I think that from the perspective of the deep state, the ones that want total world domination and control, I do think it is about a certain character trait that white people in general have, that is undesirable for their control system. And I do see a targeted genocide on whites that includes Bolshevism and Soviet Russia before, where anywhere between 40 to 100 million Slavic Christians perished, according to what I can find to be true, as well as World War I and World War II. And the main objectives of all of those wars, including the Ukraine war, seems to be to kill off white people. And this corresponds to the mass immigration that is happening. And in Ukraine right now, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, I think your viewers know, it's not the Russians who started that war, but it is the Russians now who have created a very, very effective defense system of many layers. And even if you throw every NATO soldier in the world into Ukraine, all of them will perish. They have created a killing fields And in the meantime, the EU is still, and the EU is based on the Kalergi plan, which is all about getting rid of white people and creating a kind of rootless slave race that is mixed from all kinds of races and ethnicities and does not know their ancestral heritage and does not have an identity rooted in nature in that sense. So they're insecure and therefore they follow external authority easier. And yeah, they're pushing to mobilize more soldiers. You can see the commercials on social media. Normally it's never allowed to show strong white men, especially not in groups. And all of a sudden I see all these commercials with these military guys and they're all white, you know, or almost all white. And so they're trying to get us to join that military. And in Ukraine they're just forcing boys into the military and throwing them in the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And there's about 2 million of them that have perished.
Cannon
And they
fodder.
lie to us about the Russians. They say that they lost a lot more men than they did and that they have a lot less capable military than they have. And I believe this is also in order for people to be stupid enough to think that they can defeat them, and young guys, you know, who think that they're helping the Ukrainians or something like that. And then they will join that military and they'll perish. And that's the real goal, to get rid of them. And in the meantime, our women have been brainwashed with this narrative of like the sexy, superior black man, you know, and this is very strong in the last 30 years in Western Europe, like through music, through movies, through all sorts of things, this program. And now they're pushing this mass immigration max from Africa and the Middle East. So if there was a real struggle, like primarily aimed at the Muslims that the Jews are having, why are they spreading Islam all over the West? Is it only so we fight them and we kind of destroy them, or is it because they want to destroy us? And who is they then? Do these Jews really want this? Because Israel will be destroyed if they continue this. That's for sure.
Well, it is written in their prophecies that the whole world will turn against Israel, and then the last Messiah of the Jews will come. And this is Hashem, I believe this is Satan, who will then kill all the other races in order to save the Jews. That's what their prophecy...
That's the Zionist program, right? That's the...
No, this is written in the Talmud and the Torah.
In the Torah as well? Because the Talmud is different than the Torah, that's for sure. But
well, the Talmud is, from my understanding, I've written it down, because yesterday I had this interview with the Dutch media and I explained this. So the Talmud is the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the first source of Jewish law. So this is the pillar of Judaism.
Yeah, that's rather shocking.
Maybe I can read some of their paragraphs, what they say in the Talmud.
Yeah, for the viewer, I know what they say. I know how extreme.
I know
it is.
that you know. Yeah. By the way, if you are triggered, good. Get over yourself and continue to learn. First paragraph, Sophorim 15. Even the best of all goyim should all be killed. Now, for the people who do not know what a goyim is seen as cattle. It is also, there's also a translation from nation, so a non-Jew, so other nation or cattle. Yebamoth 98a. All children of goyim are animals. Babamesia 114b. Gentiles, goys. Gentiles is the same as goy, as goyim, non-Jews. Gentiles, goys, are not humans, they are beasts. Chat Shash 2.2. A Jew may violate but not marry a non-Jewish girl. Sanhedrin 54b. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. Tospot Yebamot 84b. If you eat with a goy, is the same as eating with a dog. Baba Mesia 24a. If a Jew finds an object lost by a goy, it does not have to be returned. So these are a couple of the teachings.
Yeah, extremely sick, of course.
Rabbinic teachings towards the Jews. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But we don't have to accept it, right?
No, but this is like there's the same phenomenon in Islam, like there's all these extreme preachers that say these kind of things, and as I understand in the Talmud, this is recorded when rabbis say something, that is recorded when they make a point that is kind of new or needs to be added, they add it, so it becomes this it's the opposite actually of a clear eternal guidance that uses a universal simple in a way, narrative from unity consciousness. It goes into all the details, and I mean it cannot be justified when someone says all goy need to be killed. Then it's like, okay, if we choose to see the goy as people that are not conscious of the one, of God, right, then why would we kill them? Why wouldn't we want to educate them? If there are cattle, why wouldn't we love our cattle and create a space in which they can realize that self and God in the process, which is the meaning of culture, right? Shared stories and traditions to help us realize ourselves and carry civilization into eternity by raising a generation which raises the next generation consciously. And for that we need our own language, our own symbols, our own cuisine, and our own sports and games and traditions and stories. Then this does not make sense at all. So it's pretty clear that at the very least these writings have been infiltrated by people who are completely separate from God, from the One, whose words have been adopted as being sacred or holy or true. And anyone who believes that, again, like we said in the beginning, is a traitor to their own honest reasoning and their own perception, right? And that's what it all comes down to in the end. And the fact that God is within us all never changes. This is why God is all-knowing, because it's you, in essence. And you cannot fool it. Anyone who still believes he can trick himself at the core, he can trick the One, he can make up stories that justify violence against others just because they are others, does not understand at all what the true God is and who we are and what we're here for and that whole thing. And in this time now, it's coming to a climax where all of this is coming to the light. This is why this topic is so popular now. And I want to add a note in which we allow, because it is the highest truth that we are all one at the core, in which we allow those people who are born Jews, who come to insight by being honest, because you don't have to approve of these people saying these horrible things and doing these horrible things in the world, just because you're Jewish. This is ridiculous. So those people can come to insight. And as I said before about the Prophet Muhammad, that did horrible things as well in the past, very aligned to that kind of thinking actually. But it has a role in the past, not in the future, not in the now, in the past, to teach us about good and evil. So I can accept all this as part of this divine story of self-realization that humanity is undergoing. So the synagogue of Satan has a role. They are basically the ones that are pushing bullshit, they're pushing this external force and authority upon us in order for us to say no and to choose the real inner authority, to choose for truth.
And then we get back to the path of suffering that we're all walking right now.
From this is where the real power is. This is where we are immortal. This story is endless. And now we're moving from the tree of knowledge of good and evil back to paradise, to the tree of life. And everyone had their role to play. There needs to be a villain in the story. But they're all sacred roles. The moment that the individual who perceives that realizes that they are one at the core, and that now we're going to create from the tree of life, we're going to create this beautiful paradise, and we're not going to kill each other. We're not going to, kill the goy or whatever. It's a war in the heavens, and the heavens are the collective consciousness. It's a war of reason. It's a war of truth versus illusion. Ignorance is the enemy.
Yeah, and it's our duty to create this heaven on earth. Thank you, brother. I think this is a beautiful ending for this first episode. We are writing history right now for ourselves, and I hope for thousands of other people, like-minded individuals. If these topics were new to you, then we both invite you to check out our platform. It will be online very soon. I'm working day and night to make that happen. On the platform, you can create a free account, so you will have access to all kinds of documentaries, including Europa: The Last Battle, 10-chapter documentary, one of the most censored documentaries on Earth. And this will give you more insight about what we are talking about, and it will create a solid foundation for you to start your awakening, let's say. Thank you very much for being here, Ruben. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add a note, because it's going to take a while, but I'm working on books and all sorts of material. So there's going to be material coming from me as well, and from us probably. And I just want to thank all the viewers for their time and for their reception. Bless you all.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, butterflies. If you want to follow our tribe on social media, you can do so by going to Facebook, the Butterfly Tribe, and on Instagram, where you can find all my shorts. Robin is the bird, and Ruben will also have his Instagram in the near future, and I will make sure to share that as well, all underneath this video in the description. Thank you, and see you in the next transformation.